Hey, Blue Demons, Courtney here from the Office of Student Involvement. We hope you had a restful weekend and welcome to week 2 of classes. I'm joined today by Brian Howard from the Office of New Student and Family Engagement for this morning's session of Get to Know DePaul. Brian, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, Courtney, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so for those of you who may be new to
So,
the stream, those of you
uh,
that may be new to the stream, Get to Know DePaul is a live stream session that we've designed for you to get to know different DePaul resources, programs, and services around the university. So today we're getting to know a little bit about the Office of New Student and Family Engagement and success coaching. So Brian, to kick us off here, how about you tell us a little bit about you? So who you are, where you're from, how long you've been at DePaul, and why you decided to come here in the first place.
yeah, of course. So I came to Chicago a year and a half ago. Yeah, so it's been a fairly recent move for me. I am currently a graduate student in the clinical mental health counseling program at DePaul. And so my role is a graduate assistant within the Office of New Student and Family Engagement, and I work specifically in the success coaching program. But I moved here from Atlanta, and so, moving up to the cold frigid north was a little bit of adjustment for me, but I was looking for a change. I was excited to get back into a much more vibrant city, public transportation, accessibility, great restaurants, all those sort of things. It has been a little bit different in the times of COVID, and I will acknowledge that, but I've been thankful for the community that I found at DePaul. The program in particular has been exceptionally supportive, and I've been really happy to find a role within DePaul that everything with the Vincentian values and the mission of the university, and finding a program that helps align with that and support students in a lot of different ways has been so meaningful for me, especially thinking about just the program that I'm studying and really looking at how to engage with populations across all different aspects of the city and the university.
Yeah, that's great. And we know, especially in new student and family engagement, you all have the opportunity to interact with a whole lot of students, right? So I'm curious for our viewers, can you explain a little bit about what NSFE does?
Of course, yeah, and you are entirely at home right there, Courtney. We see students throughout the whole entire process of your first year at DePaul. So for students that are coming into the university new, our office oversees orientation. So whether you're coming in as a first-year freshman or whether you're coming in as a transfer student, our office works very closely with admissions in that transition from handing off from the admissions office to setting students up for success when they're coming to learn more about the university and meeting with their academic advisor. So when you've engaged with the orientation program, you've engaged with our office. And then after that, for first-year students, in the fall of the first year on campus, we also work very closely and help oversee the Chicago Quarter program, which incoming freshmen take Chicago Quarter. This is a unique year this year, but we actually have a group of 4 Chicago Quarter classes that are running this winter quarter as well. So new students that are joining the university during winter quarter, they also are getting an introduction to Chicago, and the Chicago Quarter program also helps students learn more about resources at the university and different departments and help acclimate in what can be a really overwhelming experience. So that's the next stage of how students interact with our office. And then after you've had your first quarter at DePaul, that's when you then start interacting with my program. And so the program that I work directly with is called Student Success Coaching. And Student Success Coaching is a peer program where a first-year student has the ability to interact directly with a fellow undergraduate or graduate student that is also going through many of the different experiences that first-year students are trying to grapple with and understand and navigate. And so they've been there before. They know what that experience is like. And with the Student Success Coaching program, students are partnered up with a success coach to help work through myriad of different concerns, problems, areas of growth. Coaches work with students to address areas that they're thriving in, and also areas that they may feel like has been more challenging for them. And through the process of things like SMART goals or just even looking at like a wellness wheel and understanding things or elements of physical health or mental health or emotional well-being. You know, coaches have been trained to help address some of these different concerns with students and then come up with obtainable ways to address those and move through that throughout both the winter and spring quarter. And so then that's how our office rounds out the full entire first year for students. You know, you come into DePaul through orientation, you then have the Chicago quarter class to acclimate yourself a little bit better with Chicago and DePaul. And then after that, during winter and spring quarters, you have the success coaching program to serve as an additional layer of outreach, support, really creating that safety net for students as they continue navigating through that first year experience.
Yeah, well, and Brian, I think what I'm hearing you talk about is really it's this first year student journey, right? It's everything from like the minute that you commit and you come in for orientation to getting acclimated to the university, and then really ensuring that you set up a pathway for success. So I think it's really important that students, you know, when they have the opportunity, really invest in those different parts of their collegiate journey, because it really is designed to be that, right? It's designed to be that introduction to creating this pathway for success for you. And obviously, one of the ways that you do that is through success coaches. And we actually have a question from one of our viewers. So the question is a success coach self-appointed, or do students get to choose who they prefer given the coach's bio?
Yeah, that's a thoughtful question. So I will say that all of our students are assigned, or all first year students are assigned a success coach based on your Chicago quarter class. So everyone that was in your Chicago quarter class will have the same success coach assigned to you. And, you know, all of our coaches have received the same basic training and understanding and background. Now, granted, to the point about this, you know, each coach might bring a little bit something different to the table. And, you know, for that reason, that's why we do automatically assign a coach to a student. But also we understand that sometimes those relationships could be better served by someone else, but also know that all of our coaches rely on each other for information sharing. So if you do have a question that maybe, let's say, your coach might not be as familiar with all the intricacies of that, they have 23 other coaching staff members that they can also rely on to get that information for you as a student. So the plan is that, you know, you've been pre-assigned a coach, and then you'll work with that coach throughout the winter and spring quarter. If there is a concern, you can always feel free to bring that forward to us or also with the coach, and we'll look to see if there's someone that might be better suited to work with you. But know that we have a massive amount of resources and everyone is engaging with each other. So the idea is that you'll have the same access to the experience of success coaching no matter who your coach is.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Brian. We actually had another question come in. So do success coaches work with graduate students?
So the way that the success coaching program has been set up, it is for first year undergraduate students. Partially this is because many of the graduate programs have peer mentor programs that are somewhat similar in design and structure. Also, we understand that this is a very big transition for students going from their high school experience into the undergraduate collegiate level. And so that's why, at least at DePaul, this program currently is only for first year undergraduate students.
Yeah, but I think what you say is important to note. Even so, for our students watching, if you're not a first year student, there are other systems in place for that, a similar type support. So a great first place to go is your academic advisor. So if you aren't sure where else to connect, or if you don't know who to ask, just because DePaul is really such a large university, that academic advisor is always a great first point of contact. So if you aren't a first year student, that support still is there, just might look a little bit different than what NSFE offers through the program. So be sure to connect with your academic advisor. They're a great first place to go. But turning a little bit back towards the success coaching program, you know, I'm curious, Brian, if you can tell us a little bit more about what does it look like. So we know obviously Zoom is there. There's probably Zoom meetings, but are students going to are they going to receive outreach any other way?
Yeah, no, and those are great questions to ask. And actually, as a first year student, unless this is your first quarter at DePaul, so meaning winter quarter is the first time that you're coming into DePaul, If you were here in the fall quarter, you already will have received outreach from your coach last week. So coaches started emailing first-year students Wednesday through Friday of last week. If you haven't heard from your success coach, not to worry. All of our success coaches are actually in the process of doing some phone calls and calling outreach to every single first-year student this week and probably into next week a little bit too. So be on the lookout for also either a phone call or a voicemail left from one of our success coaching programs. Also, you can feel free to email us directly. I know we'll have the email address up later, but it's also just successcoach@depaul.edu. With that, if you happen to have not heard from your coach and you're still trying to get in touch with us, you can email us this way and we'll make sure that we get you in touch with your success coach. But yes, great question. We've already started doing outreach and you'll continue hearing from the success coaches throughout this week and throughout the winter quarter.
Great. So Brian, I'm curious, as we head into winter quarter, I'm curious if there were any themes or trends that you heard from students throughout Chicago quarter or just from other interactions that you may have had.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, Courtney, because that is the interesting thing is that with our office having the Chicago quarter program under our purview, we did see a lot of the feedback from students, which then has also helped us inform the success coaching program, which follows up with the Chicago quarter program. And yeah, I honestly, a lot of what we hear and saw throughout the fall is just students trying to create that sense of community, even though it's in this different, more remote space. And that, that's part of what coaches are here to talk about too, is understanding that, they've been trained on how resources at DePaul are still entirely accessible in this remote environment, how things like this and events where students are connected with each other are still going on. Talking with students about, I may still feel a little bit intimidated speaking out in my class where I might not know my peers, but what are ways that I could find some elements to tap into or make a connection with someone and do some outreach, even though it may feel different than if you were just sitting next to your classmate in person. That doesn't mean that you can't still have those levels of interaction and get to know friends and make some future connections at the university, even though it's in a remote space. I think personally, from my perspective, this is my third quarter of online classes, and I can entirely relate. And I know what it's like to try to feel out this in a different way of, speaking out, reaching out to, having conversations with classmates on discussion boards, that it might feel a little bit different, but you can still learn a lot about each other. And that's a good way to have as a springboard to then say, hey, I saw that you talked about you had an interest in this, or I saw that you came from here, or that you're living here currently. I grew up there, or something along these lines, that you can still find ways to make those connections even in this remote environment. And that's something that success coaches can also help students be encouraged to do and talk about different ways to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talked about a lot with the fall get to know DePaul sessions, but I think is really important. Like the thing that I have to believe is like the pandemic isn't going to last forever, right? Like we're not going to be confined to 6 feet away from each other hopefully for the rest of our lives here, right? So like now is your time to build a foundation, like get to know people, try a new community meeting, try out something new, whether it be through an office, a student organization, because it really is your chance to build a foundation. Because when, the pandemic lifts and we know obviously vaccines are starting to roll out, campus doors are going to open, right? You're going to be able to go back to campus events. You're going to be able to go back to classes. So it's helpful to know that you're going to have those familiar faces, right next to you hopefully in the near future here.
And that's a nice distinction that you make, because that ties in so clearly with the goal of the success coaching program, is that yes, this program is only available for first-year students. The idea is that during this winter and spring quarter, we're building students up for success to be able to navigate all these different elements on their own for when they're at DePaul in the future. And exactly to that point, there's a lot of groundwork that you can lay right now and have someone that's there to support you and help you figure out how best to do that. And that's exactly what the success coaching program is here to provide for first-year students, is to lay that foundation so that as you go into your second, third year and beyond, you've already had some experience and you have a toolkit to be able to successfully navigate it. And it's also free. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but this is a free program. It's free and available to all first-year students.
Yeah, which always important to designate, that there's not going to be any surprise charges to your Campus Connect for participating. So for our viewers, if you haven't had a chance yet, feel free to post comments in the questions. We can answer them live during today's session. But Brian, if viewers either watch this on demand or have questions later on, how can they connect with NSFE? And are there any other resources that students should be aware of?
Yeah, so really the best way to engage with us is through all of our different social media platforms, which is DePaul at DePaul NSFE. And that's where you also find out information about not only the success coaching program, but also Chicago quarter orientation, which I will quickly plug for students that are not first-year students. Well, actually, even if you are a first-year student, coming up in later winter quarter and spring, we will start hiring for Chicago quarter mentors and also for orientation leaders. In particular, this success coaching program, the website for success coaching program is go.depaul.edu / success coach. On that website, though, we do have a number of great resources for students that even if you're not a first-year student, that can be helpful. There's some tips that each coach provide if you click on their picture. Also, yeah, thank you, Courtney. So there's on the right-hand side, there's a video that just talks about the success coaching program, but as you scroll down, you'll see all of our different current coaches, and if you click on one of their pictures, it will bring up a quick bio and a tip that they give to students about navigating DePaul and the college experience. But then just a little bit below that, that's where you'll find some videos that we've created, and we look to create and add more as time goes on. But these are some quick demo videos of how-to guides of finding a job on campus, navigating student employment websites, setting up an appointment with your advisor, and registering for classes. We know that some of these resources exist elsewhere, and this is not the end all to never meeting with an advisor, but these are some additional tools to try to utilize.
That's great. That's very helpful, I think, for students to know, and especially those how-to guides. We hear from a lot of students, they are really helpful, and they walk you through it. And I imagine they were either created with students or by students. So, it's not like somebody who isn't familiar with the system is trying to teach you. It's, heavy users of these systems. So we've gotten a lot of feedback from students that they're very helpful.
Yep, you're exactly right. Yep, made by current students.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. As we round out our time together, I'm curious if you can share a piece of advice for students as they head into winter quarter.
Yeah, I think this ties back into that idea too about just engaging in communication. It feels intimidating. I won't lie. It is intimidating to try to build some of those connections when everything feels very remote and disconnected. And at the same token, I would say your peers are feeling the same way. And that little bit of communication touch point, sometimes taking the bold step of initiating a conversation, even if it's just to say, hey, would you be curious to chat for 30 minutes out, or you don't even have to specify a time, but just say, hey, would you be up for chatting or staying on after class gets out to talk for a little bit in Zoom or set up a Zoom meeting? That goes a long way. And as a individual, you'll feel a little bit more connected. But then if you're on the receiving end of that too, that feels really nice to just help build that sense of belonging and community, which I know is such a core value of DePaul and is something that I've really appreciated seeing. And I know it looks different right now, but that doesn't mean that just because it looks different doesn't mean that it still isn't there.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you for that. And thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today. For all of our students watching, this is part of, or Get to Know DePaul is part of Winter Welcome Week, which after the attacks on the Capitol last week, we decided to move back some of the Winter Welcome Week events. So you can see the rest of the schedule and the adjusted schedule by visiting welcomeweek.depaul.edu. So you'll see all of the remaining Get to Know DePaul sessions. We moved a couple things like the trivia night is now scheduled for this upcoming Wednesday instead. We're going to have the spirit shirt drop on Thursday instead of last week. But the other thing, if you haven't had a chance to yet, you've probably seen this little QR code in the bottom of our stream for today. And by scanning that QR code, you will have the opportunity to win a DePaul Spirit Pack that includes a DePaul towel and tumbler. So you can watch either live or check in today live or anytime until January 17th for that opportunity to win. And you can win from any one of our sessions. We've got 10 of these sessions throughout last week and this week. So be sure to scan and check in. But until this afternoon, we hope you stay well and healthy. And we will talk to you soon, Blue Demons. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.